This stock just made a massive move, and almost nobody is talking about it. No headlines, no hype videos, no mainstream attention. Just a quiet surge that caught most traders completely off guard. And here's the crazy part. The setup behind this move is still there. In fact, it might be even stronger now. We're talking about a low-float stock where only a small number of shares are actually available to trade, meaning, if real buying pressure steps in, the price doesn't just slowly climb, it can spike aggressively in a very short time. This is the kind of situation where traders start chasing after it's already up 50%, 100%, sometimes even more because they didn't see it early. But right now, this is still sitting in that early phase where attention hasn't fully kicked in yet. And when that changes, things can move very fast. Now most people in the market are distracted by big names, chasing whatever is already trending, but smart money is always looking for what hasn't been discovered yet. That's exactly where this company comes in AleAnna Inc. A small-cap energy play operating out of Italy, focused on natural gas and renewable gas production. On the surface, it might not look like the typical hype stock, but when you dig deeper, the story starts to get very interesting. This company isn't just sitting on potential, it's already producing, already generating revenue, and recently reported numbers that absolutely shocked expectations. At the same time, it's positioned right in the middle of one of the biggest global narratives right now: Europe's energy situation, with ongoing supply pressures, rising gas prices, and countries pushing for domestic energy sources. Companies like this suddenly become a lot more important. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly what's going on here, from the float setup that can cause explosive moves, to the insane growth numbers that most people missed, and the global catalysts that could push this even higher. Because the reality is, opportunities like this don't stay hidden forever. And by the time everyone starts talking about it, the biggest move is usually already gone. Right now, there's a stock quietly sitting under the radar, and almost nobody is paying attention. No hype, no trending hashtags, no mainstream coverage. But sometimes, that's exactly where the biggest opportunities are hiding. Because by the time everyone starts talking about a stock, the real move is usually already over. Smart traders don't chase attention, they look for setups before the crowd arrives. And this is where things start to get interesting. The company we are looking at, AleAnna Inc., has a very specific setup that can lead to explosive price movements. It all comes down to supply and demand. The company has around 66 million shares outstanding, but only about 9 million shares are actually available for trading. That's what traders call a low float. Now here's why that matters. When a stock has a limited number of shares available, even a small increase in buying pressure can push the price up quickly. And if volume really starts coming in, the move doesn't just climb, it can spike aggressively. Buyers begin competing for fewer shares, and that imbalance is what creates those sharp, fast moves you sometimes see out of nowhere. This is the kind of setup that doesn't stay quiet forever. It just waits for a trigger, whether that's news, earnings, or simply attention. And once that trigger hits, the price action can change very quickly. That's why understanding the setup early matters more than anything else. Now, before getting caught up in the price action, it's important to understand what this company actually does. Because hype can move a stock in the short term, but real business fundamentals are what sustain momentum. And surprisingly, this isn't just a speculative story, there's a real operation behind it. AleAnna Inc. is focused on natural gas exploration and production in Italy, along with renewable gas initiatives. That already puts it in a very strategic position. Why? Because right now, energy, especially natural gas, is one of the most important sectors globally. Europe, in particular, has been dealing with ongoing energy challenges. Countries are trying to reduce reliance on external suppliers and shift toward more domestic production. That creates a strong narrative for smaller local producers who can step in to fill that gap. And that's exactly where AleAnna fits. One of their key assets is the Longanesi gas field, which has quickly become the centerpiece of their operations. This isn't just a future project, it's already producing, and that's a major difference compared to many small-cap energy companies that are still in development stages, with no real output. So instead of being purely speculative, this company sits somewhere in between its early stage, but already generating real production and revenue. And that combination is what makes the story much more compelling. Because now, you're not just betting on potential, you're looking at a company that's already proving it can execute. This is where things start to get even more interesting. Because once production began, the timeline didn't just meet expectations, it completely exceeded them. And in the energy sector, that's a big deal. Production at the Longanesi field officially started in March 2025. Now typically, projects like this take time to ramp up. Companies often project months before reaching stable output. But in this case, stabilization happened in just 6 weeks. That's significantly faster than the expected 3-month timeline. And it didn't stop there. By July 2025, the field had already reached its full targeted production for the entire year. Think about that for a second. What was supposed to take much longer was completed months ahead of schedule. That kind of acceleration changes the entire outlook of a company. Now, let's talk numbers. By mid-2025, the field was generating over $100,000 per day in revenue. That's not a projection, that's actual daily output. And when you scale that over time, it starts to add up quickly. This kind of rapid execution is rare, especially for a company at this stage. It shows operational efficiency, strong management decisions, and the ability to deliver faster than expected. And in the market, speed matters. Because when a company proves it can execute ahead of schedule, investors start paying attention. And once attention starts building, the story begins to shift from unknown to opportunity. Now let's move into the part that really caught attention. The financials. Because at the end of the day, numbers are what validate the story. And in this case, the numbers didn't just improve, they exploded. Revenue from the Longanesi field jumped from $3.3 million in Q2 2025 to $10.6 million in Q3 2025. That's a massive increase in a very short period of time. But even more important than revenue is profitability. The company reported $5.3 million in net income during that same quarter, along with $6.3 million in EBITDA. That means this isn't just growth, it's profitable growth. And for a small cap company, that's a huge milestone. In fact, this marked consecutive profitable quarters, something that many earlier stage companies struggle to achieve. Now here's where it gets even more surprising. The company's earnings showed a massive increase, with revenue growth exceeding 1,600%. That's the kind of number that immediately stands out. It signals that something significant has changed within the business. At the same time, cash flow from operations reached nearly $9 million in just one quarter. That adds another layer of strength, showing that the company isn't just reporting profits on paper, it's generating real cash. When you combine revenue growth, profitability, and cash flow, you start to see a very different picture. This isn't just a speculative play anymore, it's a company transitioning into a real operating business. Now here's where everything connects the global picture. Because sometimes, a stock doesn't move just because of its own performance. It moves because of what's happening around it. And right now, the macro environment is playing a huge role. Europe is still dealing with energy supply challenges. Gas prices have been volatile, and supply disruptions continue to create uncertainty. Add in geopolitical tensions, potential LNG disruptions, and risks around key shipping routes. And you have a situation where energy becomes even more valuable. In this kind of environment, local producers gain importance. Countries want reliable, domestic sources of energy, and that puts companies like AleAnna Inc. in a strong strategic position. When gas prices rise, producers benefit directly. Revenue increases, margins expand, and the overall value of production assets goes up. That's exactly why energy stocks often move in response to global events. Now, combine that with everything we've already discussed: the low float, the rapid production growth, and the strong financial performance, and you start to see the full picture. This isn't just one factor driving the stock. It's multiple layers coming together at the same time. And that's usually when the biggest moves happen. Not when everything is obvious, but when the story is still developing, and the market hasn't fully caught on yet. So when you step back and look at the full picture, this isn't just another random small cap stock making a quick move. You've got a low float setup that can trigger explosive price action, a company that's already producing real revenue, growth numbers that completely shocked expectations, and a global energy narrative that's still unfolding in real time. And when all of these factors start aligning at once, that's usually when things get very interesting. But here's the reality: opportunities like this don't stay hidden forever. At some point, attention comes in, traders start noticing the volume, the numbers, the story, and that's when the momentum phase begins. The problem is, most people only show up at that stage. They wait for confirmation, for headlines, for everyone else to start talking about it. And by then, the easy move is already gone. That doesn't mean this is guaranteed to go higher. It's still a small cap, still volatile, and still carries risk like any other trade. But setups like this are exactly what experienced traders look for: early signs, strong catalysts, and the potential for momentum before the crowd arrives. So now the question becomes simple. What happens when attention finally hits AleAnna Inc? Because if the volume follows the story, and the story keeps getting stronger, this could turn into something much bigger than what most people expect right now. If you want more breakdowns on under-the-radar stocks like this, before they start trending, make sure you stay tuned. Because in this market, the biggest gains don't come from chasing what's already popular, they come from spotting what's next.